Well, greetings, Series 7 test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you Friday night, TGIF, from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Yes, I will interrupt my basketball game and my stogie to help you out with an explication request. So here is another one that somebody had sent in and needs some help on it. Hey, kudos. You guys are going to work on a Friday night and study on the weekend. I'm here. We're like Denny's. We're always open and serving. All right, so let's get busy on this one. A client purchased 300 shares of BFD at 28. So, the minute I see 300 shares, I'm saying, okay, I always want to do things on a per share basis, but if things start looking funky, maybe not. Please note, fire up the T. The T is fired up. It's ready to go. And you need to have a T. I can't tell you how many times I'm trying to help somebody else say, well, where's your attempt to do this? You can't just stare at things. You got to have some kind of an attack plan. All right. So 300 shares at 28 in July 2011. That may or may not be meaningful. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see later. In June of 2012, they write two October 35 calls at 5. Okay. So now I know that this is a little messy. So when it gets messy, then Dean violates what I usually tell you to do things on a per share basis, because there's really no way to do this if I've got 300 shares and a couple contracts and all that stuff. So it looks like what I'm doing is a covered call on 200 of the 300. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put the 200 shares that are presently tied up in a covered call. So let's see. So I'm going to be that I paid for the stock is going to be 5,600. And I'm going to remind myself somewhere with a note that's 200 shares that are busy and tied up with those covered calls. So let's see. Let's put a little note to ourselves. And let's put it doesn't have to be a big note, but on your Prometric scratch paper, you should kind of think as a test taker, if somebody looks at your scratch paper, does it look like there's somebody who's trying to do something? So, sometimes when I'm teaching a live class, I like to step away from my whiteboard and kind of look at it and say, okay, does it look like it's a mess, or does it look like there's something going on? Okay, then I'm also going to put my other 100 shares that's not tied up in the covered call, and so that's going to be another 2,800 there. And I don't need to worry. If I want to close that out, I can, because that's not obligated to anybody at the strike price. And so let's put that there. And let's make a note to ourselves that this is 100 shares that is not tied up in the covered call. So let's get our thing here. Boom. And again, reminder, all these things require setup. So you say, what's the question? I go, I don't know yet. I don't know what the question is because I haven't actually looked at it. I'm just doing my setup. And then, I'll do whatever the question says. And, hopefully I'll be shopping for an answer that's available to me. So it says a client purchased 300 shares of common stock at 28 in July 2011. In June 2012, the client writes two October 35 calls at 5. So that's going to be our next part here. So we're going to have money in. And again, you don't want your T to be a mess. And so what I mean by that is you want to kind of really give some thought to putting things on different lines in case we got to close things out, because we might have to close some things out here. And, the reason that's important, let's just get my arrow here, is, when we offset, we may or may not have to offset the option contracts, because remember, the options can be traded, the option can be exercised, or the option can expire. But, I kind of like this because it kind of points me in the right direction of whatever the closeout may be. And, I could put an arrow here. Here I have to deliver that at the strike. If I get exercised, this, I can do whatever I want with that 100 shares. Okay, so we're still doing our setup. A client purchased 300 shares at 28 in July 2011. In June 2012, they write two October 35 calls at 5. That's 5 times 2 times the multiplier. That's where that 1,000 is coming in there. And I'm going to want to make a note again that this is 2 call contracts. Whenever you got a lot of stuff going on, you want to kind of really be kind of disciplined. So 2 calls. And I'm going to put my strike price there. Just remind myself the strike price is 35. And that's important because remember, that's what I have to deliver the stock at if I get exercised. Okay, so are we done with the setup? I don't know. Let's see. Client purchased 300 shares at 28 in July 2011, June 2012, wrote 2 October 35 calls at 5 against the stock position. Yeah, who cares? I didn't need to be told that's against the stock position. So it looks like periods. It looks like our setup is over. And now we go into the second stage of the question. If the market price of Emily Airlines is 39. Now, what I like to do when I have call contracts is I like to put the current market price either above or below my strike, just so that I can, see whether it's going to get exercised or not. So I'm going to put my 39 there. And it looks like indeed, if at expiration, it's a 35 call contract and it has intrinsic value, that means I'm going to get called. I'm going to get called away and I'm going to have to deliver this stock at 200 shares of my stock at the strike price. Remember, I only wrote 2 calls here, but it says if the market price is trading at 39 at expiration. So again, this is not a lecture. This is an explication, but if you're going to trade options for me, I'd make you write 1,000 times. Options are wasting asset, time value erodes. At expiration, if an option contract has intrinsic value, it will be exercised. If the option contract has no intrinsic value, it'll expire worthless. So, here we need to know it will be exercised. So I'm going to have to deliver 200 shares at the strike price, which is 35 on 2 contracts. That's going to be $7,000. I'm going to put that in there. Okay. And let's see what the question says. So what is the client's realized gain? Boy, you got to be careful. Realized gain. So it looks like I've realized a gain of $1,400 on the stock. So I'm just making another column here to see what happened. So here I made $1,400. That was realized on the stock. And that's the difference between buying the stock at 56 and selling the stock for $7,000. And let's just clean that up. Just put that in a different color just to make that a little more stand out there. Let's put that in purple. Okay, and then I'm going to keep the $1,000 on the calls. I get to keep that money, so I made $1,000. I get to keep that because I said I'd sell the stock, and I did so. So I realized $1,000 there. The short calls. And so I haven't realized anything on the 28, right? I still have 100 shares at 28. So that's unrealized gain. I have an unrealized gain because I haven't closed out the position, right? So on the 200 shares, I have sales proceeds, but here I do not. So I'm still sitting on 100 shares at 28. And the realized gain is going to be a total of $2,400. That realized gain of $2,400 is coming from the $1,400 on the stock and the $1,000 on the option. Put that in green. I'd be the first to say that was a pretty damn tough one. Pretty damn tough. So let's just review. Let's go back and review. We should always have a T. There's no reason we should not have a T. A client purchased 300 shares of stock at 28 in July 2011. In June 2012, the customer wrote, key point for us to recognize 2 calls. So I say, okay, well, I bought 200 shares at 28, another 100 shares at 28, but I've got 200 shares tied up in a buy right or covered call. Then the question says, the client writes 2 October 35 calls at 5. So 5 points times 2 contracts times 100, the multiplier. That means I brought in $1,000 for the options. So again, this is what I'm calling my initial setup. You got to have a process, right? If the market price of the stock is 39, so now I'm going to put the 39 there above my strike, so that I realize I'm going to get called away on 200 shares. So I'm going to have to deliver 200 shares at 35. That's $7,000. And so I made on that part $1,400. I get to keep the $1,000. The calls now are poof, right? Because I said I'd sell the stock at 35. I did so I get to keep the premium there. So I make 14,000 there. So I make $2,400. All right. Woohoo. Well, remember, inch by inch, your Series 7 is a cinch, yard by yard. Your Series 7 is hard. I'll put in the video description in the comments some more option practice questions for you. Listen, I hope you're operating from abundance. And on that one, you could have just guessed B, assigned it to the universe, and moved on. The key point there was the realized gain. Hope you found that helpful. I've got a couple more requests here, so you'll see another video or two here before I get back to my basketball game.